up. Yeah. So let's continue. What shall we talk about today? I guess we can talk about comments. It's so interesting what you can learn from someone based on how they talk about either you or someone else. You see, if you know who you are, then you can tell when someone's trying to redefine who you are. Take, for example, the case where someone calls you boring, right? But you know that your content is providing value and that some people enjoy it. Then that begs the question, why does this person think that my content is boring? Especially if you're not intending to be quote-unquote fun. Then you can realize one of two things. First of all, the fact that they have to go out of their way to call something boring probably means that they have nothing but boredom in their life. They're probably experiencing a very tragic experience of not having anything better to do. And they haven't explored the emotion of quote-unquote boring too. Either that, or they're so used to high stimulus activities and content that they perceive a lack of stimulus as quote-unquote boredom. It just goes to show the divergence in experience that multiple people can have of a piece of content or art, depending on their own personal worldviews and experiences. I personally do rewatch my streams, content, and works because I enjoy them. I enjoy them not for entertainment value though, but for the insights and information that they provide. Everything that I say is also something that I would say to myself. So hearing it play back actually helps me sort out my thoughts. That's why I find it useful also to comment on the videos that I see. If I'm scrolling through social media, for example, and if I find something useful, I'll point out where I agree, say what I found useful, and then if I think it will be beneficial, I will point out what I disagree with. This is critique, not criticism. You see, people conflate the two words. If something is a criticism, the only thing that it does is dismantle and take down. If something is a critique, it is an assessment. And assessments are what helps creators. Critiques only serve to make the criticism only serves to make the person who leaves the criticism feel superior, because it's very easy to rip something apart without saying how you would change it. Seeing the flaws in something doesn't take much at all. And 9 out of 10 times, if you say something is a flaw, the author, the creator, the artist, they have already seen it. Because someone who is intimate with their own creation sees nothing but the worst parts of it at first. They know the gaps between what they envisioned and what they had wished to bring into the world. So you're actually not providing any value by leaving a piece of criticism, because that just simply targets and damages the creator's mental state. It provides literally nothing of use other than making yourself feel superior. And the fact that someone has to go do that implies a lot about their current state of life. The insults that someone says to someone else very often reflects the values they have of their own life. The complaints that they have also reflect how they view life. So, if someone says that your work is ugly, that means that it doesn't fit their perception of what is beautiful. But you have to remember that everything someone says is filtered through their own baseline standards. And very often, those do not align with your own. That's something that you have to keep in mind when you are creating. Because basically everything is a matter of translation. If you can't translate it properly, then people will be miscommunicated to. And the act of translation often is a matter of skill. But if your skill is very much honed, if the intent that you wanted to provide is clear, and someone else still misses the point, well, that's just due to, if it was writing, what we would call reading comprehension. And that's also so funny. I think that you can definitely tell these days, not intelligence, but someone's willingness to understand someone else. I guess empathy? If you just scroll through the comments section of any video, work of art, or post on social media, you will very likely find quote-unquote negative comments. Especially if what you're seeing is either popular or has value. If you don't have anything but positive comments, I guess that doesn't actually prove or disprove the premise I'm trying to say. But if you do have a mix of both negative and positive comments on that video, then you have to realize there must be some sort of value in it for people to go out of their way to leave these comments, because the purpose of comments very often is to have one's voice heard and their opinion on something heard. It's not always the case. There are some people who just want to add some value or their input to the creator. But you can very much tell when a comment is addressed to the creator or is addressed to gain attention or some sort of reaction. And it's in these sorts of comments that you get a sample size of the current state of society. We are clearly in a situation where many people are not satisfied with where they are in life. Because if you go look at people who are celebrating their lives and then the comments on those posts, or the people who are trying to do things true to themselves, you will always have someone who's trying to cut down that person. If you're a creator facing this, you shouldn't be discouraged, because you have to remember that hate is loud, but love is quiet. Support will often be silent. That's just the nature of it. If you really love someone, you don't need to loudly proclaim it to the heavens. You are just quietly always there. Now, hatred or dislike, on the other hand, that is loud. The reason for that is because they want to erase you. Not because they dislike you personally, although that might be true, but more because they cannot accept the idea that you represent within their worldview. It touches on something too deep within their own sense of identity that it starts crumbling it. They perceive it as a very real danger, almost as if their life was at risk, because in a way it is. And because they perceive it as a danger, they will be aggressive in an attempt to eliminate the danger. So, like, if someone calls you slurs, if someone tries to call you worthless, if someone basically is very aggressive and negative in those ways, it's either one of two things. One, you are a very real threat to their sense of self. So they are doing everything that they possibly can to gain some control over you so that they can redefine what they are seeing. It's a clash of narratives, so to speak, because you are telling a story they cannot accept. Or they are basically on the verge of changing because of what you represent, and they don't want to. Even if it would help them, they resist it, because change to them is more painful than staying the same. That's why whenever you are faced with people like this, you should just ignore them and not engage. If you do engage, you need to be prepared to go all the way, because to them, it is a life and death battle, since it affects their own sense of self. But you can't just push back. It requires understanding where they are coming from. You see, the thing about arguments is that logic will rarely prevail against someone who is so woven with their stance. You have to focus on the parts that actually do make sense by agreeing in part and then undermining the premise of their argument in other parts. You have to walk them into a corner, slowly but surely, and allow them to make their own mess, so that you come out of it not changing, well, they come out of it being forced to change. But that's a skill in its own set. It takes both the ability to think on your feet, a clear understanding of who you are to prevent other people from reshaping your stance, and then the ability to perceive, analyze, and deconstruct the fundamental beliefs of a person in real time. People who are good at empathy have half of this because you can understand the positions that they take, but you also need to be quite logical because you have to break down what they are premising their entire words on. But yeah, being a creator or creative, whatever word people use these days to describe those who make things, very often you actually want to reach a point where there are people like the ones I described who will very loudly protest against your every action, who will scream to the heavens that you are wrong. Because the reason why they do that is because they have no other recourse. If someone has to be that loud, that means that they are trying to drown you out, because what you are saying holds that much value. But what those people, and what you probably forget too, is that your supporters are always watching. They are seeing how you react to it. And if you don't go out of your way to remember that, you can get lost in the belief that you are not enough. But that's not true. People are always watching in silence. Mostly because, well, here, let's put it like this. If you like something, and then you consider it a part of your daily life, you just expect it to be there. You don't go out of your way to say, I like you all the time. Odds are you have a lot of friends who you would do anything for, but you often don't say that, right? Because it's perceived to be a given. Like, because of the fact that you have so much time spent together, that they do so much for you, you will be always there for them. But unless you explicitly say it, it probably never crosses the other person's mind. Well, in this case, you are the other person. This is actually amplified by the fact that you often do not know who you are a part of. Like, you don't know whose lives you are a part of when you're a creator. There are many people who will see your content, be very much changed by it, but you will never properly meet. It's like a message in a bottle, or I guess what will exist for aliens when they find the golden record of the Voyager far in the far-flung future. Just woke up a bit ago, so speaking is a bit difficult. But yeah, mental, not struggles, but I guess the push and pull of motivation on creative works is something that you have to be prepared for whenever you set into this industry, or I guess just any creative endeavor. And I see those hearts popping up on the chat. I don't know if that's just YouTube or if someone's watching, but if it is, I appreciate you. Another example of silent support. Words are very interesting. I don't know. As a writer, I just read a lot into the way that people use words because I'm very adept at understanding how words can actually be twisted to mean different things, or how it can be misunderstood because the intention behind reading a sentence often changes what meaning it has. I forget if I mentioned this before as an example, but it's kind of like it should be there. That seems like a straightforward and unambiguous statement, but saying that should be there actually can have at least two, I think there's a third, but well, I know for sure there's two meanings. That should be there can mean that from your understanding it is already there, like that should be there. But it can also mean that it would be great if it was there, like that should be there, or that should be there versus that should be there. The emphasis is very subtle, the nuance almost indiscernible, but it makes a huge difference in the sense of understanding. That's why you should also be cautious of people who use ambiguous language, because they tend to be the sort who gaslight you later. They'll be like, oh, that's not what I said, and they'll be technically true because they'll try to change the words of engagement. It's also a useful skill to have in your own personal life, just to become unambiguous. You have to understand ambiguity in order to be able to clear up ambiguity. Can you tell I'm also an attorney? Ambiguity is the name of the game there. You gotta find that very, very little wiggle room. It's, I think, also why the saying, like, the devil does not deal with attorneys or something, like bring a lawyer to deal with the devil, because the devil is in the details. And often it really is. If you're not careful, and if you are sloppy or negligent with your words, it will come back to bite you, one way or another. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just matters if you intend to deal with the consequences. If you don't care about whether or not your words cause division or misunderstanding, then just double down, always. Don't change your position. The moment you change your position, your support wavers, because your sense of self seems to be something that can shift at a moment's notice. You gotta stay with conviction. That's the only way that you can move forward. It's like how you can only get to somewhere new by continuously following a straight line. If you are always changing direction, it's very likely you'll either spin in circles or keep walking in a shape back and forth and never reach a new terrain. That's why you gotta stick it out. You gotta make sure you go far enough. 'Enough along the path to be able to tell what you want to say. You gotta make sure you go far enough along the path to be able to tell what you want to say. You gotta make sure you go far enough along the path to be able to tell what you want to say. You gotta make sure you go far enough along the path to be able to tell what you want to say. if you are going anywhere. And the fun thing about life is that if you stick something out, you are always going somewhere. That's because life does not give you nothing for efforts. It always gives you something. We aren't playing a lottery with life, we're playing a gacha game. You might not hit the SSR, the 5-star, or the big reward, but you will always get something in return. Value is always generated. It's like the universal principle of energy, or the energy conservation rule. You can not create or destroy energy. You can only change the form it takes. In other words, energy expended does not disappear. It simply transmutes and turns into something else. Of course, more often than not, this is just heat. It ends up being that energy is transformed into heat and then spread into the world. But you know, heat is also useful. It's like what they say, you gotta turn that heat up, right? So, back to the initial point I was trying to talk about. Comments. If you're doing anything and posting it online, the objective you have is not to get a lot of good comments. Your objective is actually to get a lot of bad comments. I mean, you shouldn't go out of your way to seek those out, because that's a different problem altogether. But you should be doing things that matter enough for people to hate it. Because hate and love are coming from the same form of emotion. To make a JoJo reference, it's the same type of stand as Star Platinum. Like, the core is the same, because hate and love both come from a place where you care so much about something that... Oh, did Hope just talk about this point? Maybe. But anyways, they come from the same core. It means that you care enough about it to feel deeply. And the feeling deeply part is filtered through one's expectations and worldview. Very often, if you hate something, it contradicts a fact that you hold true in your mind, one way or another. It goes against everything that you believe in, is what people often say, right? If they hate something. So, the fact that it does go against everything they believe in, you see, that implies that it supports everything someone else believes in too. Reality consists of dualities. Both the positive and negative are always simultaneously true. Like, if you have haters, you also have non-haters. Because, well, no, that logic, that statement is actually flawed. Let me put this in a different way. I gotta make the example be on point. If you have a rock, you don't not have a rock. It's a bit philosophical, but it's true, right? If you have something, then you don't lack it. So you have to redefine hatred and haters as not just that emotion of hatred, but as people who care deeply enough about your work. Because that's what it really is. If someone hates your work, they care deeply about it. You don't hate shallow things. Like, You can be annoyed by something, but if it's just annoying, or if it's just frustrating, you'll ignore it, right? The only time that you speak out against something is when it hits you so deeply that you need to have your voice heard, and you're trying to go out of your way to control the source of what made you feel that so deeply. So if you think about it like that, the presence of people who dislike, hate, or detract from your work necessarily states that there are people who greatly enjoy it, or who have a big impact on your work, or who have felt a big impact from your work. Wow, I need to finish my coffee. I'm surprised that I'm being even somewhat coherent. But yeah, this just came to mind because I was on social media recently, and then specifically on Instagram. Since I've been looking at a lot of VTubers, I see a lot of, not pre-debut, but like new or small VTubers pop up. And very often I'll see a lot of comments that are really negative and just like basically trying to hurt or discourage the people who are VTubing. And it's very telling about how much potential someone has based on those comments, right? Because I think that the VTuber is great, but I'm of the belief that they'll stick around because of the fact that they're great. So I don't say anything. That's like my default. But then other people will see that they're great, and maybe these are also people who tried VTubing but like failed miserably, and they'll feel threatened, then go out of their way to leave comments that try to hurt those people. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah. I was going to say that the presence of people like that just indicates that you're on the right track. If you have silence, then that's no good, because that means that your content is a bit too shallow. It hasn't touched anyone deeply. Well, either that, or you're not being pushed out at all by the algorithm, but that's a different story. That's just optimization of strategy then. But assuming that's true, premising the fact that you are being pushed out to people and you are getting views, if you're getting silence, then, well, I guess two things can be true at once, right? Either you are not affecting people deeply enough and they are not responding, or you're affecting people so deeply they're at a loss for words. That's the fun thing about silence, though. Since there are no indications, you get to define what that silence means. If you're getting a lot of views, but no one is saying anything, you can choose to believe that, oh, your content is no good and people don't want to say anything. Or you can believe that your content is so good that people just can't add anything. They don't want to detract from the sanctity of whatever you're producing. It's all a mind game when it comes to creation. And you just have to remember to keep that in mind all the time. I came across the other day someone saying, or posing a question about whether you would keep creating if no one ever saw what you made, right? And the thought of that is interesting because it means, or it implies that your works would just simply be put out there and then you would move on to the next. But you know that particular hypothetical can never be true, right? Because there is always one person that you're making things for, yourself. And if it has value to you, then that's enough. Because you have to remember this fact too. Everyone is unique, but everyone also shares commonalities. If you like something, then it is near impossible for there to not be someone who also likes that thing. They just haven't been exposed to it yet. And the exposure is the objective that you have to overcome. Well, here's how I see it as the path of a creator, right? And I'm not talking about streaming, I'm talking about making anything creative. There are a few steps you have to do. The first step is to reach a baseline level of performance. You have to be able to perform the skill to create what you want to create. If that is complete, then the next objective is to give your work to as many people as you can. Because although the act of creation has value, it's only when your creation reaches other people and touches their lives that it provides value. Because something can have value but not provide it as well. Like fuel, right? It definitely has value because it can do a lot of things simply from its raw potential. But it doesn't provide value until it's used or it's in the hands of something that can use it. That's why you want to get to the point where you know that you are at least minimally viable. I'll say that. Like you can reach the baseline of what it counts to perform that skill. And then you need to let other people see it. As boldly and as loudly as you can. You shout it to the heavens. You show off your work. You gotta be like a kid in kindergarten showing off their art project to their parent. It's that level of audacity in showing off your work. Because if you like it, it doesn't matter how many other people dislike it. You are looking for the other people who will like it. And if you like it, someone like you exists. It's the presence of one thing implies the presence of similar things. I don't know if that's a universal principle or if it actually logically makes sense, but let's roll with it, right? You just have to understand that or choose to believe that. If you like it, then other people will too. Now the problem comes when you hate your creations. That's different. If you hate your work, or if you dislike what you made, but you're still putting it out there, then that's a recipe for misery, not failure. Because oftentimes, like I said, people will find value in your work one way or another. If you would dislike it, other people will like it. But the problem is that if you dislike what you're making, you're going to receive severe mental dissonance. Mostly because of the fact that you probably can't see what other people like about it. I think this is probably where a lot of content creators, and I'm talking like social media content creators now, not artists, is probably where they develop mental health issues. If you're sitting there and streaming all day, or if you're making YouTube videos all day and editing, and you just don't like what you see, but your audience is telling you it's amazing, you're absolutely going to get your mind pulled back and forth from that complete dissonance. Like, if you aren't secure, I won't say secure because that's not correct either. If you aren't certain in what you are and who you are, if you can't define yourself clearly, and if you can't see yourself clearly, then putting yourself out there is only going to bring more confusion into your life. It can help with the morale boost, since having a lot of people supporting you for who you are will help reinforce your what's the word? I guess sense of self, but that's not quite what I was going for. Basically, like your motivation in a way. If you have a lot of people telling you that you're amazing all the time, then it's going to help a lot in being able to slowly accept yourself. But the problem is that if you put yourself out there already for other people to define, then every single harsh or negative comment is going to cut you deeply. One bad comment, if you're not careful, will completely tank your mood and then also shake your sense of self. That's why, although people say that streaming is an easy job, and it is in terms of the activities that you need to do, because you're not physically strenuous or very cognitively strenuous either. Well, for the most part, unless you're doing stuff like what I'm doing, where you're trying to juggle learning, parsing, and speaking at the same time. But basically, it's not hard in the sense of the abilities that you need. It's hard in terms of mental fortitude. You have to really understand that everything being spoken about you is a reflection of how other people are feeling about themselves, and not really what you are. If someone says you're ugly, then they have deep-seated issues around beauty. If someone says you're wasting time, then they have deep insecurities about their own use of time. If someone says that none of what you say matters, or none of what you put out matters, then they themselves lack a lot of meaning in their life because they're looking for it. Very often, the complaint that you get from someone else shows where they lack in their life. If someone wants to see beauty, that means that they're surrounded by nothing but the darker sides of life. If someone wants use of time, that means that everything they do in their time feels meaningless. They are looking for things that they lack. That's why it's super important to define the value that you're providing in your activities. Do you want to just provide company for someone? In that case, you should completely and fundamentally ignore every comment that doesn't match with the keeping company, because that's not what you're there for. If you want to show off and look pretty, then you can ignore the comments about wasting time and everything, because that's not what you're providing. Things like that. It's all about proper mental frameworks. And before you start streaming or do anything like that, you really do need to have these things squared in your mind. Because on the days where you go into it without a clear picture, you'll allow other people to start defining the things that make up who you are. And the moment you start doing that is the moment they start sticking in your head. So it's just all about making sure that you have things in order before you hit go live. Like, take me for example. I'm very aware that when I'm streaming like this, I'm not providing entertainment value. That's not the point. I'm not here to be entertaining. I'm here to provide some thought-provoking material, as well as potentially help anyone else who's trying to learn to draw by showing how I am trying to learn to draw. It's a example, or in other words, data set. Then there's also the fact that I'm choosing to use a feminine, or at least ambiguous. To me, it's a bit ambiguous whether it's my avatar is male or female, but it does come off as more feminine. Like, the reason that I choose that is the same reason that I choose a pretty female character in a game. When you're doing things for a long period of time, you just don't want to be looking at a guy. Sometimes. I mean, unless that guy is super cool and like blinged out with gear. But for an avatar like that, you need a lot of money, and I currently do not have the resources to spare to invest on that. But I did have it already set up from when I was making Hope, so I made my own avatar based on Suika's customizable one. Not ideal, but also not ideal. Like, it does the job, so that's why I keep it. It's just all back to, I guess you can all boil this down to pure intention. What do you intend to do? What are your objectives for setting out to begin those activities? A lot of people probably don't think this through. Oh, no, I appreciate you with the hearts. I'm glad that I'm helping provide value. And I'm also glad that you're enjoying the gesture drawings. At the very least, I think it's a bit ASMR, because I noticed on the rewatching of a VOD that you can hear the strokes I make. So that's cool. But yes, it's very much about the intentions that you need to sort out before you do any particular creativity. Like, I guess it's just in the nature of it, right? When you create something, there's a few ways to do it. You can either go in with a particular intention and a form you want to create. Like, say you want to draw a person today, so you go out and then you draw a person. And if you have a clear image in mind, like if you have references to work from, then you're creating in the sense of more construction than raw creation. Oh man, that's messy. Because you have an image to work off from. If you do that, if you have references, and if you have an intention for what you want to end up with, odds are high that you will end up with what you want. Like, if you have a blueprint, you will end up making that blueprint. That's why I say when you go live or when you create stuff, you should follow with the intention first. But that's not the only way to create, and I think that's probably what people forget. If you just go with the act of pure creation in a let's see where this goes kind of vibe, then you can't control what you'll end up with. But you have to make peace with that. And the problem that people face is that they don't make peace with that, but they still go in without intentions. Like, if you're not in the mood to stream, but you're going in anyways with the let's see what happens, then you can't feel upset if it doesn't go the way you want it to go, since you didn't go in with clarity. On the other hand, if you had been aware of that, you know you're not in the mood to stream, but you accept that you're not in the mood to stream, and then you just go in accepting whatever happens without any expectations. It's very subtle, it's very nuanced, but you'll often end up feeling better because you're in the mindset of receiving, kind of. I'm not sure if this makes particular sense. It's a very nuanced way of looking at it. And my cognition is too overloaded to re-explain the nuance. But at least that's what I see from a lot of streamers. Because these days, since I'm trying to be a proper VTuber, I watch a lot of new VTubers that start up. Not the established ones, because those people are pretty secure and certain in the content they want to create. But I watch a lot of the newer ones who are starting out. And it's super interesting because you can tell that a lot of these people are drawing from experience. They seem to have a streamer persona in mind that they are modeling themselves after. I think it's because people are kind of under the impression that you need to act a certain way or do certain things to be successful in streaming. And that's probably the trap, because these people seem to be going into content creation with the idea or intention, no, it's not even intention, with the objective to be successful. But I think that they haven't quite clarified to themselves what success looks like. Take me, for example. I can clearly define what success for me as a VTuber would be. And that would be if I can at least have one person who has taken some value out of what I provide. Because the act of VTubing for me is actually not being a VTuber in itself. It's kind of more to advertise my other creative works, because I'm also a writer and I'm trying to get the skill up enough to make my own art pieces that I have in my head. Oh yeah, I completely understand what you're talking about when you say you have a particular standard and that if you don't meet it, you lose interest and motivation. But see, that's the interesting thing. There's actually a small trick to it. It's easy to say, simple to conceive, but difficult to execute. Basically, you have to be willing to throw away works. Like, it's basically what I'm doing right here. I'm not taking these to completion because I'm working on the underlying skill set. So I'm very fine with these just being like throwaway pieces of work. What's the word? Mode of operation that you have to exist in when it comes to drawing is that you have to devote yourself to the role of being the thing that brings forth what you have in mind. You have to be not the architect, but like the midwife or the delivery guy. if you do that, and then if you don't allow yourself to abort, basically, or stop, these analogies are a bit too much, but if basically you just have to see it through to completion. It's about racking up attempts and accumulating value from those attempts. So even if it cringes you out of your mind and then you want to burn it afterwards, do it afterwards, right? It's only when you complete something that you can ascertain the value it provides to you. Like if I had I'll just give this an example. Like say I'm doing these gesture drawings, and then say that this one popped up, like, oh shoot, I made the head too big. If I just stop here, then I lose all value for it. But if I continue it anyways, and then I try to make it fit, I actually build up experience from that failure. Because here's what people forget. Failure doesn't mean you get nothing from it. Failure is actually another means of value, because you get value from the negative. Oh, I drew the head too big. I failed because it's not matching up. Well, next time, I know that if I start with a smaller circle, then I'll be able to fit more on the page and do XYZ. Or if you start too big, then you can make it bigger and then be like, oh, this is how they do quarter bodies or half bodies, etc., etc. The thing that helps a lot is when you realize that you can always make something have value. It's very rare that things don't have an intrinsic value of one way or another, because since the human brain is just so good at picking up patterns, and since it's so good at making meaning of things, if you have just something that exists, you'll be able to get something out of it. That's what people often get hung up on, at least from the comments of people who want to learn how to draw or write or create. That's the gist I get from them, is that they don't have the, I don't want to say mental fortitude, but it kind of is. Like, they don't see it through to completion. It might be super cringy, and it might be terrible, but since they're always stopping halfway or partway, then you don't get to rack up the wins, the small pieces of experience that would come from having a completed piece. And then very often, the people who improve the fastest are the people who are willing to just say, screw it, we ball, and then make all of the mistakes, quote unquote, that other people wouldn't be willing to make. Because this is something else that I think people forget. Luck does come into play. Oftentimes, well, I guess not oftentimes, but it's very possible that when you make a mistake, you stumble onto a miracle or some giant grand epiphany. Like maybe one day you accidentally select a wrong brush, and then all of a sudden you love the way the lines work. I'll take an example for this. I think before I was messing with the size of the brush for coloring, and I forgot to change the pixels down to a thinner line. But now that I did that, I very much enjoy these like chunky brush strokes that I have. If you just keep stopping and starting and not allow yourself to make mistakes, or for life to basically, no, it's not even life, it's for luck to play in. If you try to control all the variables all the time, you miss these moments where luck plays out and then gives you something that you had never even imagined. In short, the point I'm trying to make is that as a creator, you have to know when to control it and when to relinquish control. if you're trying to make something up to a particular standard, and if you know the exact processes, that's when you focus on control, because you're making a particular thing. Like, take cooking for example. You aren't going to wing it by throwing ingredients together when you want to make a meal. If you're making dinner, you're going to follow a recipe, or at least close enough. Like, you aren't just going to throw flour, water, cornstarch into a pot and pray you make bread. You are going to make bread. That's because it's made for consumption. But if you want to experiment, if you want to just see what comes about from the act itself, that's when you start playing around. That's when you pick random ingredients and then you put them together to see what happens. Because the value there is not in the outcome, it's in the process. And then the consequences of those processes. It's cause and effect that you're looking at there, not the result. It's a very subtle nuance that, again, people probably forget about or don't consider. Because when you're experimenting, you're not trying to get something in particular as a result. You're checking correlation and causation. That's why I am doing this instead of taking like an hour and properly sketching out the core features of whatever references I'm using. I am checking the cause and effect and then the residual effects of sketching the same pictures and the same poses in very short time frames over an extended period of time. Like, I give myself 30 seconds to try to parse all this information and to try to put as much of it down as I can to see if my brain will somehow give me like a superpower. I think it is working because I can't like demonstrate it, but internally I definitely have the mind's eye now where I can see how these poses would exist in space. Like, I can roughly tell the proportions, how it would go if I modified it, like the length at which each limb can move and the perspective it would be. It's basically like the box exercise, if you know what that is, where you draw like 250 boxes at all different varying angles. But instead of just doing that, I am receiving a similar learning effect just from sheer exposure of trying to dissect a fully rendered piece of art into its constituent parts. Like the shapes and everything, as well as building up my own shorthands for the limbs. Like for thighs, it's definitely just like 2 arcs here, but I can also do like an S or what letter is that, an M? Kind of like a seagull. Things like that. It's derivation from first principles that I'm trying to learn. I know that I could have spent money on like a structured art course and probably improved much faster. But the value for me in doing this is not in just the art itself, but it's a sort of meta experiment to see if derivation from first principles is a skill that can be acquired. And then if so, that means that it can be applied to anything. Like learning an instrument, or learning how to cook, or learning just any sort of skill along those lines. And that would be much, much, much more valuable than just learning a way to draw or a way to render. If you understand the principle of making principles, then the world is your oyster, in a way to speak. Because that means that you can set out an objective with a particular principle in mind, and then you can force your way into discovering a style or technique that suits that principle. And I am not there yet, but I have a very strong intuition that it definitely works, because I think it's probably how people pick up languages so quickly for the polyglots. They learn one language in a structured way, but then they pick up on the meta principles of how languages work, and from those meta principles, it's all just translation, as long as you understand the basic syntax of the new language. So that's my spiel for the day. Oh, we're at an hour. What time is it now? I should be going, actually, because I have a lot of things to do today. But if you're still here, a bird atta? Well, if you're still here, I appreciate you for stopping by. I hope that it was helpful and it helped you think about your life a bit more. But I'll be heading off now. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you around hopefully. Bye for now.